On our recent Hometowns and Heroes show, we went to the first territorial capital of Arizona, Prescott, Arizona. Prescott is especially known for its courthouse plaza, with a famous statue of Bucky ONeil and the Rough Riders. You'll also find the Sharlot Hall Museum, Whiskey Row, and the world-famous Palace Saloon. This is where Virgil and Wyatt Earp made themselves feel right at home, along with Doc Holliday and Big Nose Kate.
We're in Prescott, Arizona, which is famous for its Whiskey Row. And a little bit of background, I've written books about Whiskey Row, the Whiskey Row fire of 1900, and I want to talk about that because to my back here, you see past the stoplight, there was a place called the OK Lodging House, which miners love to stay. And lodging houses were very, very basic. They had a bedroom. And these miners were out on July 14th late, and they had been partying along Whiskey Row, and they came back and they got a miner's candlestick holder, which is something was meant to go, you put a candle in this iron apparatus, and it's supposed to go into rock walls. They left the miner's candlestick holder and the candle in their burning. They left, and there was a hotel over here called the Grandview House, and there was a saloon called the Cellar Saloon. They went down there and they're drinking. Next thing you know, gunshots were going off, and they should have been able to put the fire out right away, but they were in a severe drought and there was severe lack of water in town. They tried to hook the hoses up to the mains, and no luck. Maybe 10 feet came out. There was a well down here. They put the pump down in there, or the hose down there, started the pump. 10 feet of water and mud. People started to think we're in trouble, so they started dynamiting. And the dynamiting, what they hoped to do was bring down the fuel so that the fire would stop in its tracks, but it didn't happen. They kept dynamiting, made things worse. Over in here where you see the gallery, there was Sam Hill's hardware store, and it had all kinds of explosive stuff. So when the fire hit there, it just started going down the way here. There was a saloon here called the Cabinet Saloon. They dynamited it. And then the palace was over in this direction, and I'm going to head that way. Over in this direction here, at the time, before the fire, the palace was where you see the Jersey Lily sign right there, except there was no upstairs. I was able to find out that the bar that's in the palace today was actually there before the fire. There's no documentation, just oral history of it being brought out, but the patrons apparently dragged this bar out, and some of them people kept partying. There was a piano player here that was playing, and a soprano singer, and they started singing, "It's a hot time in the old town tonight," and it caught on. And some of the witnesses said you could hear people singing that song that whole night. This was July 14th, 1900. It was probably, there was half wood, half brick. There was more brick here than most people realize. But after the fire wiped out this entire business district, there was I call it the pivotal event, because Prescott had to decide, shall we keep going? Shall we continue this dream called Prescott, or just give up? Because there had been many fires before that. So to a person, they rebuilt. And what you see here is a result of the rebuild in 1901. The palace is 1901. You can see there's been some changes and everything, but most of these buildings date back to the fire, and there's been some refurbishments and strengthening of these places. But this is the after picture of Whiskey Row after the fire. It's what I call a step back in time. It's a modern day city, which makes it unique. You go to Tombstone, it's set up for tourists, but this is actually a functioning city, but it lives its history right here. And a lot of us will dress up, and they want to see the culture. They'll come into the palace, but you'll hear a lot of people walking up and down, and you hear the names Wyatt Earp, Virgil Earp, Doc Holliday, Big Nose Kate, who are here. So that draws a lot of people. But a lot of people will, the jewel of Whiskey Row is the Palace over here, and also Matt's Saloon, which was here in the 50s. The Hotel St. Michael there was built in 1901. It was the finest in the West at the time. And so people come to feel that history, to enjoy stepping back in time. It's very refreshing to some people. Well, howdy, my name is Brad Courtney. I'm a historian. They call me the Whiskey Row historian. I've even been called Mr. Whiskey Row. Probably the most revered historical figure is Bucky ONeil. His real name is William ONeil, but he had quite a spectacular life, even though it ended short. He moved here from Phoenix, and he had a newspaper called Hoof and Horn, and he was noted for being a Whiskey Row patron, a regular. He was very ambitious, though, and he ran for sheriff, and he won. And pretty much his campaign slogan was, "Let's see how I do." You know, that was basically it. They just say, you know, "Let me give it a try." So he was elected, and he was a fantastic sheriff, and he became mayor at one point. Cuba needed to be liberated from the Spanish. Theodore Roosevelt put together a group of men called the Rough Riders, who you probably have heard about, cowboys and miners and kind of tough guys, Indians, and they all got together. They formed the Rough Riders. That's what Theodore Roosevelt wanted. And when Bucky heard that, he was actually mayor here at the time, but he wanted to be part of that, and he was the very first enlistee of the Rough Riders, became a captain. By some miracle, they were able to get over to Cuba, and you've heard of the San Juan Hill charges and the Kettle Hill charges. He was at the base of San Juan Hill, and he had his troop there. I think it was G Troop, and they were being fired upon from the Spanish down from San Juan Hill and Kettle Hill, and his soldiers looked at him and said, "This is trouble, Captain. You're walking around like you're fair game here. You're going to get shot." And Bucky says, "There's not a Spanish bullet alive made to kill me." And some say that was within seconds when his mouth was still open, but a bullet went right through his mouth back, and he immediately dropped dead. So, but that, some people thought that was a legend, but I've come up with some evidence that is actually true. A lot of people wanted to commemorate him, honor him with a statue, and a lot of people, this is the early 1900s, they wanted to build something in memory of Bucky, but not just Bucky, but the Rough Riders. So there was some debate back and forth as to, should this statue be just Bucky ONeil, or should it represent the Rough Riders? Basically, it represents both. It represents Bucky, and it represents the Rough Riders. And it was built, whatever you say, sculpted by the brother of the guy who carved out Mount Rushmore. And I'm not sure I can even say it right, but it's Salon Borgham is his name. And this is considered one of the finest equestrian statues in the world. People come from all around, but we're real proud of it. And like I said, Bucky's probably the most revered historic figure, hometown hero here in Prescott.
Thank you to Bradley Courtney, author of Prescott's original Whiskey Row and the Whiskey Row Fire of 1900. When you get to Prescott, plan to join Brad on his Whiskey Row tour, and you can probably find him at the Palace Saloon.